Kaysai wiped the sweat from her forehead as she carried the heavy bucket of water from the well to her small mud brick house in the outskirts of Accra, Ghana. At 26 years old, she had been supporting her three younger siblings since their parents died in a cholera outbreak 3 years ago. Every day was a struggle to put food on the table and keep her family together. She worked multiple jobs, cleaning houses in the wealthy East Legon district during the day, selling plantains and oranges at the Makola market in the evenings, and washing clothes by the river for neighbors whenever she could find the work. Despite her exhaustion, Kaysai never complained. Her siblings were everything to her, and she was determined to give them the education and opportunities she never had. That Wednesday morning started like any other. Kaysai was walking through the affluent cantonments area, carrying her cleaning supplies to Dr. Mensah's house, when she heard something that made her heart stop, a baby crying desperately from inside a parked black SUV. She looked around nervously. The street was unusually quiet for that time of morning. The crying was getting more intense, and something in her gut told her this wasn't right. Kaysai had helped raise her siblings and knew the difference between a normal cry and one of distress. As she approached the vehicle, she saw movement inside. Through the tinted windows, she could make out a small figure in the back seat. The baby couldn't have been more than 6 months old, and it was alone. Kaysai's hands trembled as she tried the door handle. It was unlocked. Without thinking about the consequences, she opened the door and found a beautiful baby girl with tears streaming down her face. The child was well-dressed in expensive clothes, with a gold bracelet around her tiny wrist. "Where is your mama, little one?" Kaysai whispered in Twi, gently lifting the baby from the car seat. The child immediately stopped crying and looked at Kaysai with wide, trusting eyes. Kaysai looked around frantically. This had to be a kidnapping. No parent would leave such a young baby alone in a car, especially not in this area where crime was becoming more common. Her first instinct was to call the police, but she knew from experience that help might not come quickly. The baby needed immediate care, and whoever had taken her might return at any moment. Making a split-second decision that would change her life forever, Kaysai wrapped the baby in her own headscarf and began walking quickly toward the nearest police station. She had no phone, no money for transportation, and no idea what she was getting herself into. As she walked, she noticed a commotion behind her. 3 men were running toward the SUV, shouting angrily in a language she didn't recognize. When they saw the empty car seat, their voices became frantic. Kaysai ducked into an alley and held the baby close to her chest. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure the men would hear it. She waited in the shadows as they searched the area, their voices growing more desperate by the minute. After what felt like hours but was probably only 20 minutes, the men drove away. Kaysai emerged from the alley and continued toward the police station, praying silently for protection. When she finally reached the station, the officers looked at her with suspicion. A poor woman from the slums carrying an obviously wealthy baby raised immediate questions. "How do we know you didn't take this child yourself?" asked Sergeant Owusu, eyeing Kaysai's worn clothes and calloused hands. "Please, sir," Kaysai pleaded in English, then switched to Twi when she saw his expression soften slightly. "I found her alone in a car. There were men who came back looking for her. She was crying so much." The baby, who had been calm in Kaysai's arms, began to fuss when the sergeant tried to take her. She reached back toward Kaysai, and the officer noticed how naturally the young woman comforted the child. "We'll need to investigate," he said finally. "You'll have to stay here while we make some calls." Kaysai nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. She had saved this baby, but now she might be seen as a suspect. Still, looking down at the peaceful child in her arms, she knew she had done the right thing. What she didn't know was that this moment of courage would set in motion events that would transform not only her life, but the lives of countless others. 3 hours later, the police station was buzzing with activity. Word had spread that the missing baby daughter of Omar al-Rashid, one of the wealthiest businessmen in West Africa, had been found. The Emirati billionaire had been frantically searching for his 6-month-old daughter Layla after she was kidnapped from their hotel in Accra. Omar al-Rashid was in Ghana to finalize a major investment in gold mining operations. His wife had stayed in Dubai with their older children, but he had brought baby Layla with him, along with her nanny. The kidnapping had happened when the nanny stepped away from the car for just 5 minutes to buy water. When Omar arrived at the police station, Kaysai had never seen anyone like him. He was tall, impeccably dressed despite his obvious distress, and surrounded by bodyguards and assistants. But when he saw his daughter safe in Kaysai's arms, all his composure crumbled. "Layla," he whispered, tears streaming down his face as he reached for his daughter. "My precious girl." The baby looked uncertain for a moment, then recognized her father and reached out to him. Omar held her close, his whole body shaking with relief. "Thank you," he said to Kaysai in perfect English, his voice breaking. "Thank you for saving my daughter." Kaysai simply nodded, feeling overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment. She had never been this close to someone so wealthy and powerful. "Sir," interrupted one of the police officers, "we need to ask this woman some more questions." Omar looked at Kaysai more carefully for the first time. He saw her worn clothes, her work-roughened hands, the worry in her eyes. But he also saw something else, a genuine kindness and strength that reminded him of his own mother. "What questions?" Omar asked sharply. "This woman saved my daughter. She brought her to safety instead of—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "We just need to verify her story, sir. Make sure she wasn't involved in the kidnapping herself." Omar's expression hardened. "Are you suggesting that someone who risked her own safety to save a stranger's child might be involved in taking her? That's absurd." He turned to Kaysai. "Tell me exactly what happened." In halting English mixed with Chui, which Omar's translator helped interpret, Kaysai recounted the morning's events. She described hearing the baby crying, finding her alone in the car, seeing the men return, and her decision to take the child to safety. "You could have walked away," Omar said quietly. "Many people would have. Why didn't you?" Kaysai looked down at her hands. "I have younger siblings. I know how precious children are. I couldn't leave her there." Omar was silent for a long moment. Then, he asked something that surprised everyone in the room. "What is your name?" "Kaysai, sir." "Kaysai Asante." "Kaysai, where do you live?" "In Nima, sir. With my brothers and sister." Omar knew Nima. It was one of the largest slums in Accra, where people lived in extreme poverty. The fact that someone with so little had risked everything to save his daughter moved him profoundly. "I want to see where you live," he said suddenly. His security team immediately protested. "Sir, that area is not safe for you." "My daughter was not safe either, until this woman made it so," Omar replied firmly. "I want to understand who saved my child." An hour later, a convoy of expensive cars pulled up outside Kaysai's tiny home in Nima. The neighbors gathered to stare as Omar, still carrying his daughter, followed Kaysai into the small compound she shared with her siblings. Kwame, 15, Amma, 12, and little Kofi, 8, stood wide-eyed as their sister introduced them to the wealthy stranger. The house had 2 rooms, no running water, and barely any furniture. Omar saw the children's school uniforms hanging neatly on a line, obviously hand-washed and carefully maintained. He noticed the small shrine to their parents in the corner and the way the younger children instinctively moved closer to Kaysai. "You take care of all of them?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Since our parents died." "How old are you?" 26, sir." Omar realized that Kaysai had been supporting her family since she was 23 years old. He thought about his own life at that age. He had been starting his business empire with a substantial loan from his father. This young woman had been given nothing but responsibility and hardship, yet she had raised her siblings with obvious love and dedication. "What do you do for work?" "I clean houses, sell fruits at market, wash clothes. Whatever I can find." Omar looked around the humble home and felt something shift inside him. He had spent his entire adult life accumulating wealth and power, but he had never encountered such quiet dignity in the face of adversity. "Kaysai," he said finally, "I want to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer." She nodded nervously. "How would you like to change your life completely?" Kaysai stared at Omar, not understanding what he meant. "Change my life, sir? I want to offer you a job." A permanent position with my family, taking care of Layla. The room fell silent. Kaysai's siblings looked at each other with wide eyes. But sir, I don't know anything about being a proper nanny. I only know how to take care of my own family. Omar smiled. That's exactly why I want you. You saved my daughter when you had nothing to gain and everything to lose. You chose her welfare over your own safety. That's not something you can teach someone. He paused, looking at the children gathered around Kaysai. And I'm not just offering you a job. I'm offering your whole family a new life. Kaysai felt dizzy. I don't understand. I want to move all of you to Dubai. Your siblings can attend the best schools. You'll have a beautiful home, healthcare, security. In return, you take care of Layla and help my wife with our other children. Kwame, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. Sir, what about our studies here? We go to Achimota School. Omar was impressed by the boy's directness. What do you want to study? I want to be an engineer. Alma wants to be a doctor. Kofi wants to be a pilot. In Dubai, you can study at international schools that will prepare you for the best universities in the world. Medicine, engineering, aviation, whatever you want to pursue. Kaysai felt overwhelmed. Sir, this is too much. We are just simple people. Kaysai, there is nothing simple about what you did today. You have a courage and integrity that many wealthy people never develop. My children need to be around someone like you. One of Omar's assistants approached him. Sir, we need to return to the hotel. Your wife is calling. Omar nodded, then turned back to Kaysai. I know this is sudden. Take tonight to think about it. I'll come back tomorrow morning for your answer. After they left, Kaysai and her siblings sat in stunned silence. Sister, Alma said finally, do you think he's serious? He seemed serious, Kwame replied. But why would someone so rich want to help us? Kaysai thought about the look in Omar's eyes when he held his daughter. Because he's a father. And he understands what it means to love your children. That night, Kaysai couldn't sleep. She walked outside and looked up at the stars, thinking about her parents. They had always told her to work hard and trust in God's plan. But this seemed too good to be true. Meanwhile, at his hotel, Omar was on a video call with his wife, Amira. You want to bring a stranger into our home to take care of our children? Amira was skeptical. She's not a stranger. She's the woman who saved our daughter's life. Omar, I understand you're grateful, but we don't know anything about her background, her education. I know everything I need to know. I saw how she cared for Layla, how she's raised her own siblings in impossible circumstances. I saw the love in that house, Amira. That's what our children need to see. Amira was quiet for a moment. What if she says no? Then we'll find another way to help her family. But I hope she says yes. I think she could teach our children something important about what really matters in life. The next morning, Omar returned to Nima with his security team and translator. Kaysai was waiting outside her house, wearing her best dress, a simple blue fabric that she had sewn herself. Have you made your decision? Omar asked. Kaysai looked at her siblings, then back at him. Yes, sir. We accept your offer. But I have one condition. Omar raised his eyebrows. What condition? I want to visit Ghana once a year. This is our home. I don't want my siblings to forget where they come from. Omar smiled. I wouldn't want them to forget either. Agreed. What happened next surprised everyone. Kaysai walked over to her neighbor, Mrs. Ajoa, an elderly woman who had helped care for the children when Kaysai was working. Mama Ajoa, Kaysai said, pressing a small bundle into the woman's hands. This is everything we have saved. Please use it to help other families in need. Mrs. Ajoa tried to refuse, but Kaysai insisted. We are being blessed beyond our dreams. We must share that blessing. Omar watched this exchange and felt his heart swell. Here was a young woman who had literally nothing being offered everything, and her first thought was to give away what little she had to help others. In that moment, he knew he wasn't just gaining a caregiver for his children. He was bringing home a teacher who would show his family what true generosity looked like. 3 months later, Kaysai stood on the balcony of her new home in Dubai, watching her siblings play in their private garden. The transformation had been remarkable. Kwame was excelling in his advanced mathematics classes, Alma had discovered a passion for chemistry, and little Kofi spent every free moment reading books about airplanes. But the biggest change had been in the Al-Rashid family itself. Kaysai had become more than just a nanny to baby Layla. She had become a beloved member of the family. Omar's other children, Ahmed, 14, and Fatima, 10, had initially been curious about the young woman their father spoke of with such respect. But it didn't take long for them to understand why their father had brought her into their lives. Kaysai taught them things no expensive school could. She showed Ahmed how to care for his younger siblings with patience and love. She helped Fatima understand the value of hard work by involving her in simple household tasks. Most importantly, she helped all of them appreciate the privileges they had been born with. Kaysai, Amira said, joining her on the balcony. Over the months, the two women had developed a close friendship. Omar wants to speak with you. He's in his study. Kaysai found Omar reading to baby Layla, who is now 9 months old and taking her first steps. She's walking, Kaysai exclaimed. Because of you, Omar said. Look at her confidence. She trusts that someone will be there to catch her if she falls. Kaysai smiled, but she could see that Omar had something serious on his mind. Sit down, please. I have something to discuss with you. Kaysai settled into the chair across from his desk, gently taking Layla into her arms. Kaysai, do you remember what you said to me the day we met? About sharing blessings? She nodded. You've given my family something more valuable than money. You've taught us about real love, real generosity, real strength. Now, I want to do something that honors what you've shown us. Omar pulled out a folder of documents. I'm starting a foundation. The Kaysai Asante Foundation for African Women and Children. Kaysai's eyes widened. Sir, the foundation will provide education, healthcare, and opportunities for women and children across Africa who are in situations like you and your siblings were in. We're starting with Ghana, but we'll expand to other countries. Kaysai felt tears welling up in her eyes. You want to name it after me? I want you to run it. Kaysai nearly dropped the baby. What? I want you to be the director. You'll have a team of experts to help you, but the vision, the heart of it, that needs to come from someone who truly understands what these families need. But I don't know about running foundations, about business. You can learn those things. What you already have, the compassion, the wisdom, the understanding of what it means to struggle, that can't be taught. Omar leaned forward. Kaysai, you saved one child 3 months ago. This foundation could save thousands. Kaysai looked down at baby Layla, who was playing with her bracelet and babbling happily. She thought about all the children in Nima and other slums across Africa who deserved the same chances her siblings now had. If I do this, I want my siblings involved. When they're older, when they've finished their education. Of course, this foundation should be a family legacy. 6 months later, the Kaysai Asante Foundation held its inaugural event in Accra. Kaysai stood before an audience of dignitaries, business leaders, and community members, wearing a beautiful African dress that Amira had commissioned from local designers. 6 months ago, I was cleaning houses and selling fruit to survive, she began. I never imagined I would be standing here today. But life has a way of surprising us when we choose love over fear, when we choose to help others even when we have nothing ourselves. She looked out at the audience and saw faces filled with hope. This foundation exists because a father's love for his daughter opened his heart to a bigger family, a family that includes every child who deserves a chance to dream, to learn, to grow. In the audience, Omar sat with his family. Ahmed and Fatima were beaming with pride for the woman who had become like an older sister to them. Kwame, Amma, and Kofi sat in the front row, wearing their school uniforms, ready to translate for community members who didn't speak English. We will build schools, provide healthcare, create opportunities for women to start businesses, and support their families. But most importantly, we will show every child that they matter, that their dreams are valid, that someone believes in them. The applause was thunderous. As Kaysai left the stage, she was approached by a young woman about her own age. Miss Kaysai, my name is Efua. I heard about what you did, how you saved that baby, and how your life changed. I wanted to ask you something. Yes. Do you think it's possible for someone like me to change her life too? I have 2 children, and I clean houses like you used to. Kasai smiled and took Efua's hands in hers. Sister, let me tell you something. Change doesn't always come from outside. Sometimes the biggest changes happen when we decide to help someone else, even when we think we have nothing to give. She gestured toward the foundation banner behind them. Come see me tomorrow. Let's talk about what's possible. As the evening ended and the Al Rashid family prepared to return to Dubai, Omar pulled Kasai aside. Are you ready for this? Running a foundation is going to be harder than anything you've done before. Kasai looked back at the community members who were still discussing the foundation's programs, their faces bright with hope. A wise man once told me that courage isn't something you can teach, she said, smiling at Omar. And I've learned that when you save one person, you somehow save yourself too. Omar nodded, understanding. My daughter didn't just gain a protector that day. She gained a guardian angel for thousands of other children. And I gained a family that taught me that sometimes the most important decisions we make happen in a single moment of choosing to care. 2 years later, the Kasai Asani Foundation had built 12 schools, opened 5 health clinics, and provided business training to over 500 women across West Africa. Kasai had become a recognized advocate for women and children's rights, speaking at international conferences and inspiring similar programs across the continent. But every night, she still tucked baby Layla into bed, singing the same Chui lullabies she had sung to her siblings years ago in their tiny house in Nima. Because some things, the most important things, never change: the power of love, the importance of family, and the miracle that happens when one person chooses to save another.